All right, this one's a little bit longer than normal, but it's also very important. It's about undoing basically fake news and learning how it's created. If you find this video useful, make sure that you drop a like on it, and that in the pinned comment below will be the tweet where I share this video. And hopefully we can kind of undo the damage that the garbage factory known as Buzzfeed has done to these folks. If you follow this channel for any amount of time, you know that I enjoy having a laugh at the expense of hit pieces and ideological ideas wrapped in pop culture. We have a lot of fun here. We like to joke around, but I thought, why not take a little more in-depth look at the actual construction of a hit piece, how they come to be, because it's actually my opinion that in today's click economy, a lot of these sites like Buzzfeed, they're competing for clickbait. I am convinced that they write the headline before they actually write the article. Now, BuzzFeed News, you know, I'm of the mindset that, you know, if I want to read about 10 reasons why I've been eating bananas wrong my whole life and I should be inserting them rectally, I'll look for BuzzFeed. But apparently they view themselves as real journalists. And they came out with an article this week, and I want to be clear. Both sides compete for, they do the same stuff. They both quote mine, they both selectively edit, they both wrap a preformed conclusion in some sort of article. But BuzzFeed is perhaps the most transparent that I've seen. And in this case, I was able to actually reach out to a lot of the people that were quoted in this article to debunk most of what this, quote, journalist has to say. So you can just look at the title. You see what they have for the tab here. Alt-right troll to father, you know, the unraveling of Lane Davis. And then they also selectively put things in the URL so that this will always be tied to, in this case, Ralph Retort, right? This is an SEO trick. And most of the time, just so you know, anything that goes out of its way to say it's truth usually is not truth. But this is a tentpole piece to launch BuzzFeed.news or BuzzFeed News. And they had actually, this is one thing I didn't really understand. They had been working on this for almost a year. I mean, we all know that left-wing media uses alt-right as a buzzword to get clicks. This story is a year old, and it's a sad story about a young man who lived at home and did not get along with his folks very well. And one day it ended up escalating and something very bad happened. Now, this article, as you can see, doesn't care about the facts, right? They attempt to read the first sentence. By the way, the author is Joseph Bernstein. I never know how to pronounce that name, but anyway, Lane Davis was a far-right, pro-Trump media figure looking for his big break. Then he did something very bad, okay? His innocence is not in question here. What is sickening is how desperate the media is to spin everything and make it political. The actual court, the public defender's office or the prosecutor's office literally said that they did not believe that this was politically motivated, but they wrote this giant hit piece about it. They accuse Ethan Ralph of the Ralph Retort of being a 9/11 denier and Pizzagate, It's essentially a hit piece against both the alt-right, which, I mean, come on, and Ethan Ralph. And it's sickening because Mr. Bernstein reached out directly to Ralph and looped him into this, sucked him in, asking for information about Lane Davis, because Lane Davis had written some articles for him. Now, the article itself spins it as he was like some sort of long-term employee of the Ralph. This is a 2-for-1, basically, a 2-for-1 smear. They bring up September 26th, when everybody knows that Ethan Ralph was arrested in a drunken scuffle with a police officer. He was sentenced to 8 months in county jail. Yeah. Why is that relevant to this? It isn't, right? It's about smearing him and attaching him to the alt-right. Now, I don't know much about Ethan Ralph's political leanings. He was, I believe, very socialist in some of his views, liberal in some of his views for a long time. And gradually, as he got older, he moved more to the center and more to the right. But that's pretty much true of a lot of people, right? And he talked about how he felt sad about, what Lane Davis had done, and that how he lamented how they would let politics get involved. But again, this was never really about Lane Davis. This was about smearing. And I want to talk first about quote mining. This author, Mr. Bernstein, spent a lot of time with Ralph on the phone, doing phone interviews and getting quotes. And almost every single quote he used in this article was selectively edited. A couple of them in a sinister way, in my opinion. He did issue a few corrections late, but did not correct most of the disgusting stuff. And then you see, within hours, it ends up on the Washington Post. And one of the quotes I want to look at as an example here, is how they referred to Ethan Ralph here. Then Davis did this to his father in a fit of what appears to be politically inspired rage. No, this was never proven. In fact, the prosecutor reached out and said that it wasn't, that he had no evidence of that. And then they take this quote out of context about Ethan Ralph. He didn't get the game, said Ethan Ralph, who runs a Ralph retort. It was a game for Ralph. He was intentionally getting it wrong. I mean, this is, okay, it's an opinion piece, but it's an out-and-out lie. And I was able to talk to Mr. Ralph about this, and let's loop some of that in.
Where he says, where he quotes, before Gamergate, I was a pretty standard liberal, even a socialist. I'd write hit pieces on right-wing figures. It was a hobby, but when Gamergate broke out, I got an audience that happened to be more reactionary. I thought it's my job to do propaganda for Gamergate. The ethics and video game journalism stuff, I didn't care about that. Now, I did say all that. I really didn't. I mean, this is not a secret. I didn't really care that much about the ethics and video game journalism stuff. I did write about it some, but I don't. That's not the what
you weren't
really
deeply connected. You were writing content, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And I wanted. I mean, my thing was taking on SJWs in gaming, basically, not through the ethics and video game journalism stuff, but the kind of just going at them the same way they were going at other people. But the way he leaves that quote or puts that quote out there, it makes it sound like, oh, Ralph's just a socialist who just decided to start LARPing online, and that's not what happened. And I've talked about this before. My politics gradually changed. The more I went along with this writing thing, the more I saw what the media did, the more I saw how they frame things, like we're talking about now. So I eventually changed my politics. It wasn't that I was just LARPing, but the way he puts that out there, and I told him this, but the way he puts that out there is, oh, this is just some socialist LARPer who just, so I could make some money off writing, clickbait, and that's what he was doing. And there's another quote later in the article where I said Lane didn't get the game, and that's pretty much just all he puts right there.
That was
Lane,
very, and I mentioned that it was also where it was. I'm sure they didn't. I'm not sure that they knew this, but the way the line break was, with the video or an ad or something that showed up, that's just kind of hung out there as this weird thing.
Yeah, so the quote he put was this is me speaking, and I did say this. He completely ruined his life with some stupid internet shit. He didn't get the game. Now, I absolutely said that. Now, the thing I meant about the game was not that it was some, trolling game and I don't care about any of this and I was just drumming up, whatever hatred or stirring up crazy people. What I meant about the game was, and this goes for right, left, or center. When you write online, when you critique the culture or give your analysis, for me personally, it ends online. I don't carry that to Walmart when I'm out, whatever, buying groceries, or, I'm sitting at Starbucks or wherever, some coffee shop. I'm not sitting there just so mad. Oh God, these progressives, I can't even be out with these people. How they're all around me. No, I mean, I do, you know what I mean? I do now some people are like that.
Yeah, well, those are the people that burn out too, right? People
exactly.
often ask me like, "Dude, you're so butthurt." I'm like, "No, man. The second I upload the video, I'm over it. I got it out there. Yeah. I'm good. Moving on with life."
I'm pretty chill in real life. Like, I mean, I definitely care about the issues. I definitely care about politics. I think it's important, but I don't carry that with me every day. I don't get mad at family members who might disagree with me. I don't just, get in a rage when I talk to my mom. Like, what, she hates Trump, for example. I don't just, God damn it, how could you speak like that? You know what I mean? It doesn't. Politics are politics. Life is life, and I separate the two. So what I meant by he didn't get the game is he didn't understand that, and he let some stupid internet shit, which a lot of this stuff is. I mean, it sounds derisive, but I'm not gonna let a story about some pedophile or some political dispute interfere with my familial relationships and my friendships, because I don't feel like that's how you should live your life, and I don't think it's healthy. So.
And do you think it's at least plausible that that quote was shortened up and no context was provided? It seems like a lot of these quotes were cut off in a way to just kind of use you as like, to both discredit you, but also give a political opponent credit by saying like, well, see, they don't care. And look at what happened. Like he said it was all a game and then somebody got killed, even though that wasn't, what your intention was.
Exactly. I mean, it's not only plausible, I would say it's quite probable that is exactly how they wanted it framed. And I don't know if it was Bernstein himself, Bernstein with his editors or the editors, but that is quite clearly how they wanted it framed. And then they have a quote from my wife right after this quote where she's talking about, I watch Alex Jones. To me, that's entertainment. We don't really think the frogs are gay, blah, 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 blah. Now, when she was actually talking to Bernstein, that comment was about the Alex Jones show versus some of the other stuff on InfoWars, like some of their blog posts, some of their actual stuff that, that she might put some stock into. So they took her quote out of context completely as well. And they put that quote right underneath mine about he didn't get the game. So they're trying to frame all this as all of these people are just playing games and somebody's dad got killed. So that's clearly what they want the reader to think when these comments weren't even about that. So.
Now, I know a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes, even if you're this far in the video, saying, mainstream media lies? No shit. Yeah, fair point. But I thought this video, while a little bit more long, would be interesting to look at the anatomy of it and how data and quotes get twisted. To me, it was clear that Mr. Bernstein had a clear goal of this article, and that was to use buzzwords like alt-right and troll to prop up and attack the alt-right and to make connections that never really existed. In my interview with Mr. Ralph, I asked him about many things, about, they paint him as some sort of long-term employee. Well, that wasn't true. He was an intern. an unpaid intern who just wrote some articles for him. They brought his wife into it, misquoted her, and she's been taking heat online. And this isn't at all how the story was pitched to him. And I know I have a soft spot for this because I've been in Ethan's position before where I was getting smeared as some sort of super mega sexist harasser without any evidence. And Polygon and Kotaku reached out to me. I took the interview knowing full well they weren't going to represent me fairly, and then they didn't. But unless you're in that position, I kind of understand why he took the call, why he did the interviews, because you have some hope that there's some journalistic integrity, and especially when the journalists themselves outright lies to your face about the intentions of the article, which is what they did to me at Polygon Kotaku, saying they wanted to represent it fairly, and they did it to Ethan as well. Right.
That's correct. And, I found it hilarious that they try to frame me as playing a game, this and that. This was literally the tentpole piece on their BuzzFeed.news or their BuzzFeedNews.com site that they were trying to launch with the redesign. And they made this fancy graphic with Lane's face all flashing around like some cyber hacker shit. That this was the idea. Now, this is not how the piece was pitched to me. The reason I cooperated with it in the first place was I thought, okay, this is something that happened. This guy was an associate of mine. It is, an important story. If it's told fairly, let me give it a chance because I think it could be important. Now, I ended up, I got burned.
And another mistruth, in my opinion, that Mr. Bernstein had was in a section mentioning 80. I hope I pronounced that properly. I was able to reach out to this person and verify the quote. Again, I want to look at how they will ask people for their information or for an opinion and completely misinterpret what their truth is, or they're just using them. A poster named 80 had a flirty DM relationship with Lane, but could not coax him into getting on a flight to come see her in Michigan. I think he was pretty content to make YouTube videos and write all day, she told me. I don't think he had any intention of changing what he was doing. But for all his work, Lane wasn't getting paid, and because he wasn't getting paid, he was stuck in his father's home, blah, blah, blah. Well, I spoke to her. I wanted to see if that quote was correct, and this is what she returned back. Bernstein wrote, and then exactly what I wrote. It was true. We had a flirty DM relationship and casually talked about meeting one day, but I never tried to coax him into coming to Michigan. I knew Lane didn't have the means. In fact, we never even got as far as discussing any kind of meeting place, only that someday it would be cool to hang out. When Bernstein asked me why I thought we never got around to meeting up, I said because I knew he didn't have a job to pay for it, and I didn't want to be the one paying for the ticket. She also mentioned she thought it was curious that he mentioned her location. It's like a low-key dox, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. So we have another example of here we have, just a blatant out-and-out lie, where it's a creative interpretation of a truth, but what they really want is to pretend to have this facade that they've actually reached out to the people involved, and then they just lie about what you say to further their own narrative. Another important part of the hit piece is its proliferation. It's first falsely gaining trust of sources to convince people you have some level of journalistic integrity, and then it's about working together with your fellow journalists to spin it out everywhere, to make sure magically appears first on Buzzfeed, then on Washington Post, one of the biggest newspapers in the country, and on and on and on and on, and it's getting tweeted and retweeted. These are all people working together. I know it sounds a little tinfoil hat, but I mean, there's no way these articles are written like that and published that quickly unless they had some prior knowledge and this is coordinated. They all know, hey, a lot of people are going to be talking about this today, so make sure you publish it and you can get those delicious ad clicks and retweets. It's really, really sinister stuff. Now, how did you mentioned your So we have two kind of interesting edits on quotes. Not incorrect, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like selective editing almost or something. And then it's interesting to see it then get like spun out onto all these other sites, which basically just, regurgitate the thing. It gives you pause to, it makes you think about the Game Journal Pros thing, stuff back in the day where like all these journalists are in some group and they just time it. Like,
yeah, and somebody else talked about that, and because when this story was put out last Wednesday, it spread like wildfire, quick, like really quick. All these journals are tweeting it, selecting quotes, and it happened so fast that, yeah, my mind definitely thought too, oh, this was getting passed around in some private groups. This was getting passed around on email lists and stuff like that, because it just fits exactly what they're trying to push. So yeah, that definitely 100% crossed my mind.
yeah, it seems. So if you made it all the way to the end, make sure before you leave that you hit that thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it. And if you take anything away from this video, it's to always be skeptical, even when you see quotes directly from somebody you might trust or you might think is an authority on a topic, because even they are selectively edited and often mined with a certain result, a preconceived notion in mind. So be careful what you read out there, and stay vigilant in poking at and making fun of more fake news.